Welcome to AARP Connecticut in your community. Hi, I'm Elaine Warner. I'm your host for today's program. I am on staff with the AARP Connecticut statewide nonprofit office where we do advocacy and community outreach. We come to you today in your local community to share resources and with AARP's purpose in mind, and that is to empower you to choose how you live as you age. I am proud to say that today's show focuses on honoring our veterans. Nationwide, 5 million veterans are AARP members. That is nearly 13% of all ARP members. If you are one of them, thank you. And right here in Connecticut, there are nearly 170,000 veterans. That's 5% of Connecticut's population as of 2019 statistics. AARP salutes your service and sacrifice. And if you're watching today as a veteran or a family or friends of a veteran, our program is devoted to you and how to protect yourself from con artists, given that veterans are 2 times as likely to be targets of scams, and we will talk about why. We will provide resources to protect and prevent fraud, specifically geared to veterans, but our information is for any viewer regarding protections from scams. And from whatever state you are watching regarding veterans, all websites and resources apply. So I would now like to introduce my guest, Troy J. Broussard, the Associate State Director for Advocacy and Outreach with AARP Louisiana. Welcome, Troy, all the way from Louisiana.
It's a pleasure to be here, Elaine.
We are delighted to have you. And as I always like to say, as the host of the program, we like to bring the experts to the show, and that's why you were invited. And our viewer will see why. Troy, you call yourself a proud Army veteran. You served in Desert Storm, going into the service at the young age of 19. And now you are protecting older Americans through your work with ARP. You focus on ARP's veteran and strategy and outreach, not only throughout Louisiana, but impacting ARP's national fraud prevention work. Another reason we invited you to the show. So, Troy, before we get started and hearing from you, I am firstly going to present to our viewer what I think is a beautifully produced video to set up the show. So let's roll tape.
AARP is dedicated to empowering people to choose how they live as they age. We have a long history of supporting veterans, military, and your families, including over 4 million who are AARP members today. There are 5.5 million military and veteran caregivers. We make it a priority to point you to resources that can help you provide better care for your loved ones and yourself. Veterans are twice as likely to be targets of con artists. AARP's Fraud Watch Network and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service have teamed up on Operation Protect Veterans to share tips on how military families like yours can protect themselves. AARP helps veterans better understand the civilian job-seeking process and helps military families identify financial milestones that make sense for you. With nearly 10% of our AARP's membership being veterans and military, we are dedicated to meeting your needs as you have sacrificed for our great nation. From all of us at AARP, thank you for your service.
And Troy, as you said in that video, ARP has a long history of supporting veterans. You and I, as staff people with ARP, are both very proud of that. And hopefully we will continue that with our program on fraud today. And it is entitled ARP Salutes Veterans. So, Troy, I mentioned you started in Desert Storm. I like to say you went full circle because here you are now at, if I can say respectfully, an old, somewhat older age, helping our veterans to protect themselves from fraud. So if you can just comment on your military background and how did you end up at ARP doing what you do today?
Absolutely, Elaine. Thank you. And again, I'm very honored to be here. You know, my story started back, growing up in Louisiana. I was looking for a way to pay for college, and the military provided that opportunity. So I joined the military and the Army, and soon after that had an opportunity to where we got activated, my unit, to go to Desert Storm. And now my purpose changed from joining to pay for college to a second mission or a second purpose. And that was to go ahead and defend my country. And it's one of the proudest moments that I've had in my entire life. And we'll fast forward after that experience, spending almost 6 years there. spending the next 20 to 25 years in the private sector working for communications companies, and then having an opportunity to land at AARP and not only work for AARP, but get an opportunity to assist veterans there. And then now here we are, AARP has a long history with veterans, military, and their families, and we are here to navigate those complexities, of life's transitions for our veterans. We focus in 4 major areas that we're going to talk about: family caregiving with the Military Caregiver Guide, fighting fraud, easing transition into the civilian work and life jobs, and then also connecting veterans to earn benefits. So that's what we hope to share with you all today.
Well, that's great, Troy. And we're so respectful of you leading the charge on all this, coming with your expertise from having served. And we thank you for your service to our country as well. I want to touch on initially here also the AARP Virtual Veterans Brigade volunteers. I understand that the members of that help raise awareness about supporting veterans of all ages, quite frankly, but with an emphasis on the 50 plus. Can you tell our viewer about the, see if I can say this again correctly, Virtual Veterans Brigade volunteers?
Elaine, you did an excellent job. You're
Thank
exactly
you.
correct. Okay. These are volunteers that utilize content that we share by our AARP national team to broadcast information across a multitude of digital and social platforms, because a lot of our members are going there and we want to reach all ages, and it's very important. But they work very closely with our national VMF core team and in the Office of our Volunteer Engagement to identify emerging issues and practices that we can share. And I call it a committed group of virtual veteran volunteers that cares about veterans and that is here to support and share necessary information. We at AARP want to be that trusted resource for veterans all across the country.
And Troy, to both of us, volunteering is near and dear to us. As staff members of AARP, my information is going to be up on the screen, so people can contact me if you'd like to volunteer and get involved in some of these programs. Troy, before I forget, also next to your contact information, we're going to have hashtag AARP Salutes Vets. If people went to that, what would they find there briefly?
Right. If they go to that hashtag, you will see all the content that we at AARP, our national team, shares for veterans. And these are trusted resources, access to our military caregiver guides, opportunities where you can join job fairs so that you can go ahead and do that second career, an excellent trusted information resource for you. So please go to it.
Great. And again, we'll have all kinds of information on the screen for you. Now, this really, I found this statistic awesome, that veterans and military families are twice as likely as civilians to be targeted by con artists. And a Fraud Watch Network survey found that 80% of veterans have encountered veteran/military specific scams. If you can please explain, Troy, why those who wore America's uniform must remain ever vigilant, and why are they targeted with those statistics that I just mentioned?
Well, I'll start off by saying, veterans, we have a sense of service and delivering on the mission. We want to serve our country. So when scammers reach out to veterans by using some of our same language that we use, we'll talk about information like the DD Form 214, which is our personal military records, and use what is your MOS or your military occupational specialty. Those terms relate well to veterans. And then that pulls on the heartstring of veterans because we want to serve to provide that information. And it would seem it's for a great effort. However, it's put the veterans at risk. So that's why we want folks to be extremely careful. And that's why scammers prey upon those that are really trying to give back to the country that we serve, which is terrible.
That it's interesting. And thank you for enlightening us about that. Now, I know AARP has also teamed with the United States Postal Service, Operation Protect Veterans. If you can tell us about that as well, Troy.
Absolutely. Back in 2017, AARP and the United States Postal Inspection Service, we created Operation Protect Veterans. And this was to provide valuable information and resources that veterans, their loved ones, and their friends can use to help protect against scammers. Together, we can fight back to take one small step to repay veterans for their service. They've given the sacrifices that they have made. And this collaboration together gives you a one-stop shop to where you can find the scams that are impacting veterans across the entire country.
And, and speaking of scams, let's get specific here. We're going to hit on now some of the top, there's a whole menu that we could talk about, but let's highlight some of them. I'll just start with, how about charity scams? Tell us about those.
Yeah, those charity scams, they pull at, again, like I mentioned earlier, they're pulling at the heartstrings of veterans. And when you hear of a charity that has an impact to veterans, you automatically want to give it. But before you do that, please don't do that. Go to www.charitynavigator.org, and that will let you know the viability of that particular charity. You want to make sure that it's one that it's really doing what its mission states, because that's one of the largest ones that they'll utilize, that scammers will utilize to defraud our veterans that have served our country.
And we'll get that on the screen. I'm just going to repeat that, Troy, www.charitynavigator.org. What about bogus job offers to recruit veterans?
Oh goodness. These are, any job offer that you have to provide money for, it's probably not a recent or something that is, important or something that you should do. You want to stay away from those, because these bogus job offers to recruit you is just a way to scam you, to take your money away from you. So stay away from them, please.
Gotcha. And what if somebody says they're calling from the VA, or again, bogus phone calls? What about those?
Yeah, these are bogus phone calls. Again, the VA normally will not call you. That's not something that the Veterans Administration will do. Normally calls are made to the VA. The VA will normally send something to you in writing in a letter form, but they won't call you asking you to give out important information about yourself. So stay away from those two, please.
Gotcha. And, as we're talking here, for those of you watching, you can see behind Troy and his background, AARP.org veterans. We're going to keep mentioning that. That's a go-to place for all that we're talking about today. Let's move to, there's so many more scams we can talk about, but you can find that information at our Fraud Watch Network. But just mention some of the 3 top prevention tips.
Have a game plan. And what I mean by that, practice a script. So when someone's calling you from a number that you're not aware of, just be prepared and say, you know what, my answer is no, thank you very much, and just hang up. Okay, that's number 1. I mentioned earlier going to the www.charitynavigator.org to make sure charities are legitimate. And if at all possible, when you are out and about, just be careful about using public Wi-Fi, because hackers can get into some public Wi-Fi, especially and capture some of your sensitive information, and then scam you from that and take monies away from you. So just be careful of those 3 things. Hang up. Make sure that the charity is a viable entity, and then make sure that you avoid public Wi-Fi when all else possible, please.
Three excellent tips. Thank you, Troy. And, we have to mention one of the most common mental health challenges that veterans face, and that is post-traumatic stress disorder. I've read, Troy, and maybe you can speak to this from being in the service with fellow service members, that PTSD can be even more debilitating than physical wounds. And I know that AARP provides resources to support information regarding that.
Yes, I think you said it perfectly. Some of the mental wounds that veterans hold on to, because you're in battle. We are seeing things that normal civilians would not ever experience. We are experiencing this, living through it, and it could cause some scars that may not be noticeable from having a conversation with someone. So you have to understand that sometimes, like Vietnam veterans, have the highest lifetime prevalence of PTSD, followed by soldiers who fought in Operation Iraqi Freedom and the Gulf War as well. This came from a report from the Veterans Administration. Some of the things that you can do is that whenever you are talking to a veteran, just make sure that you focus on listening and understanding where they're coming from first, and just listen and understand that they've been through some very traumatic times. But there are resources that we do have, like was mentioned earlier, at www.aarp.org. And it is something that we are focused on as a AARP Veterans, Military and Families Initiative, really focused on reaching our veterans to help them through this very traumatic time.
Yeah, very serious subject there.
Sure.
And, we're throwing out a lot of possibilities for resources, but if you want to email the Connecticut State Office for AARP directly, that is ctaarp@aarp.org. And wherever you're watching today, wherever in the country, I will be happy from the state of Connecticut with Troy's information and AARP to forward these various links to you. And, the PTSD makes me want to morph right into another area that is, again, near and dear to AARP, Troy, and that is caregiving. Another thing I've read, and again, you're probably familiar with this, caring for a wounded, ill, or injured service member or veteran might be one of the most challenging roles you will ever tackle, but I've also read one of the most rewarding. So if you can speak to that, and also what resources AARP provides for caregiving.
I think you said it perfectly. One of the most challenging roles is a caregiving role. Okay. And I think it's twofold. So we want to make sure at AARP, we want to make sure that the caregiver is being taken care of. And how can we take care of the caregiver? By providing them a guide to help them through this tumultuous time, to make sure that they have a plan, that they have a group of individuals around them, a support-centric area. And all of those things and much more can be found in our military caregiver guide, which is very specific to the needs of military and military families. And again, that can be found on our website as well. But I would definitely, if you have an opportunity, take a look at that. And it's a really easily downloadable guide that you can utilize and put to work effectively while you're going through your caregiving situation, handling one of your loved ones.
And I don't know if you're referencing this website, but I'll just mention it as well, Troy, which is aarp.org/prepared to care.
Yes.
I know that guide is whether you're a veteran or not a veteran.
That's right.
We'll provide resources for you to think about. I always like to think with AARP's caregiving program that it gives you resources in advance. We say, look at that before you get to a crisis if you can, right?
Perfectly mentioned. That is correct. Try to review it beforehand so that you are prepared and you have it handy, and then you can just go right into action when that situation arises. Always good to be prepared for it. Absolutely.
So, and now I just want to make sure, again, I know we're throwing out a lot of resources, but
Right.
This is what it's all about, being prepared or after the fact. In fact, I just found out about a new one in a Fraud Watch presentation with AARP. Right around the time of taping the show. It's aarp.org/fraud support. So if you've been a victim of fraud, I don't know if you want to speak to that, Troy, but that's a very emotional experience being a victim of fraud, right?
Absolutely, Elaine. In some cases, people feel ashamed, and that's what the scammers are hoping for. They're hoping that you're shamed into not reporting this particular this fraud that has happened to you. So that's why it's even more important that if it does happen to you, that you have a special line, this support line that you can call, talk to someone about it, and then feel comfortable enough to let us know what that fraud is so that we can share that with everyone across the United States and say, be wary of this. And I think that is the key. Your action, although you may think, okay, this happened to me and I'm very upset about it, but if you do report that and we could share it, maybe you can prevent it from happening to someone else.
Well, and a nice segue also, we have a Fraud Watch helpline. If you prefer to call that helpline, that is staffed by volunteer fraud fighters. And that number, it'll be on the screen, but it'll be 877-908-3360. And Troy, if you can just speak to our fraud fighters on that fraud hotline also, helpline, I should say.
It is staffed with volunteers from across the entire United States, and their focus is to listen, to understand what your situation was, and then also provide some support. And these are folks, these are your neighbors, these are your friends, these are family members, people that work, that have retired, and they are there volunteering their time to support your efforts. And I tell you what, we have a couple here in Louisiana that does it, and they're a couple. When I mean a couple, they're a married couple, been married over 60 years, and they do it together, okay? And some of the stories that they share about how they enlighten folks and really just listening and providing support. So please, like Elaine mentioned, 1-877-908-3360. Call us so that we can report what's going on so that you can protect others around you. A neighbor helping a neighbor, in other words.
And they take that information of potential or real scams and report it to the appropriate places so there can be action, right?
Absolutely. Actions being done, that those are being reported up to the some cases the Federal Trade Commission, the United States Postal Inspection Service, and it's all in an effort to get the word out to prevent these from happening to anyone again.
And I want to mention also, again, I'm Elaine Warner, the host of the show today, but I'm on staff as Troy is in Louisiana. I'm in Connecticut, but I'm the program specialist for volunteer engagement. So anything that we're mentioning here that's volunteer related, feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, that's Elaine Warner, 860-548-3169. Troy, you probably know this in Connecticut. We do a number of fraud presentations and we have volunteers. We have a very robust group of volunteers that are trained in that. If you'd like to attend any of them, you can go to our website, wherever you are watching from, be it United States, even globally, AARP.org/CT events. And I'm guessing probably in Louisiana, you do outreach in that arena as well.
We have something very similar as well. We do the same thing. And this is what I love about AARP. It doesn't matter what state you're in, doesn't matter what town, how big or small, you can go ahead and give back. And this is a wonderful opportunity for you to do something to really sound the alarms, in other words, or provide information that can help people be prevented from getting scammed in the future and stop new ones right in their tracks. So love what you guys are doing here in Connecticut. Continue that. And absolutely, if you have an opportunity to volunteer, please call Elaine. She's great. All right.
Good. You did my pitch for me. I appreciate that. And, I'm thinking also there were a couple of scams that we still haven't mentioned that, again, whatever age you are and whether a veteran or not, but how about those calls or emails that you get for tech support scams?
Yes, you must be careful about phone calls and those ones for tech support, about someone calling you and wanted to take over your computer to go ahead and add a virus protection, and they're not. They're trying to scam it and get your information and use it against you. So please be mindful of that and just be wary. Remember, hang up. If you're unsure, hang up.
Well, and I always say if somebody really wants to talk to you, they will leave a voicemail. And then you can, depending on where they're calling, we'll repeat this again, particularly if it's a charity scam. And we know it pulls at the heartstrings of our veterans. That's www.charitynavigator.org. Troy, we have just a little bit of time left, but again, we're so pleased to have you. Troy Broussard is Associate State Director for Advocacy and Outreach, comes to us all the way virtually today from AARP, Louisiana. But what, if anything, what I like to call words of wisdom or thoughts that you might like to leave with our viewer before you go?
Absolutely. Again, very proud to be here, proud to serve our country. And then now I found my second mission in serving our members, as well as those in the 50+ population and all ages, of course. But just keep this in mind, veterans have served our country. It is our time to give back to those veterans, military, and their families, ensuring that we protect them as they transition into the civilian life. That's important. But we want to protect everyone from scams. I think it's extremely important. I would leave you with this. Protect those that have protected you. That's important. And then lastly, If you want those free resources, please go to www.aarp.org/veterans and take your time and take a look at that site. And I think you'll be prepared to go ahead and make a difference. Thank you.
Great resource. And as we know, you can spend hours on an ARP website easily. So Troy, thanks again. We want to thank you again for your service to our country. And we are so happy that you made it full circle back to ARP to help our current veterans protect themselves from fraud and their family members as well. And glad to have you here from Louisiana. If Connecticut can return the favor to you, you let us know. And for those of you that may be listening to other radio or TV in Connecticut, you may hear that voice or see Troy helping us out in Connecticut again. So thanks for everything, Troy. Stay in touch and hope to give you help from Connecticut the next time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elaine.
Okay, my pleasure. And I want to thank you once again to our veterans. ARP salutes your service and sacrifice, and to the over 5 million ARP members who are veterans, nearly 13% of ARP members. And I want to repeat again, from whatever state you were watching, all the websites and resources that we are mentioning today, one in particular, arp.org/veterans. Wherever you are watching, there will be resources that will be applicable. And I do want to mention also, if you're one of close to 600,000 ARP members in Connecticut, we want to thank you for that as well. Last but not least, are you interested in volunteering? You could join our very active Fraud Watch Network and other programs in Connecticut. Please feel free to call me, Elaine Warner, Program Specialist for Volunteer Engagement with ARP Connecticut. That's 860-548-3169. Or my email at ewarner@arp.org. We look forward to returning to seeing you in your local community with ARP's purpose in mind, and that's to empower you to choose how you live as you age. Thanks for watching. See you again in your local community soon. Thank you.